Hi everyone, Brandy Yvette here with the season finale, part 1 of Just Swallow the Pill for the Power of Prayer. I have with me my special guest, Sasha Simmons of 731 Podcast and a motivational speaker. And she is going to discuss with us again our part 1 of the power of prayer. So I have been very open about God and how God has played his part in my journey and how I used to just pray and holler and scream for him to just come and save me, and how I felt so alone. And because God doesn't come exactly when we want him. Like at the very moment, he doesn't say, "Oh, I'm here."
Right.
It's one of those things where he comes when, like, really it's right on time.
Always.
Yeah. And so I mentioned to you guys last season, and I'm gonna briefly kind of go over it again, but I mentioned to you guys last season my God moments. And I'm gonna speed through it because I might cry, because I cry every time no matter what happened, no matter who I'm talking to, no matter when I tell it, I bust out in tears. But you guys, if you missed last season's my God moment, I had again been hollering and pleading with God to just come and tell me what to do. I had no idea what was going on in my marriage. I didn't know if it was ending. I didn't know if it was just a difficult part, of our marriage that we had to kind of just get through. I had no idea what was happening in my marriage. And I pretty much laid in the bathtub one night after reading Genesis chapter 7, verse 11. And I realized through my readings that he opened the floodgates of heaven on my birthday, on the 7th. And how it was written was on the 17th day of the second month. And I literally had to read it over and over again, because I was like, is that my day? Is that my day? And so after it kind of set in, yep, that's your day, I kind of laid in the bathtub and I started talking to God. And in church, a lot of times our ministers, our pastors will tell us that God comes to you in a very soothing manner. And I didn't believe, I was like, I've never heard God before. He's never come to me. So I didn't know. And so all of a sudden, a very calm feeling came over me, and a very calm voice whispered to me after I asked, "Why did you kill all of those people on my birthday?" And he said, "Because I had to start over." And it just kept repeating, start over. And so that was my answer as far as what to do about my marriage. I needed to start over. This wasn't it. He wasn't the one. And you need to just start your life over. And for me, that was my confirmation. All right, you're with me.
Yeah.
You're with me, because I didn't believe he was with me. And so it just confirmed a number of things for me. First of all, confirmed, we all have some sort of question whether we want to believe it or not, if God is even real, especially those of us who have grew up in the church. Our parents are heavy in the church, but we haven't experienced that God moment.
Yes. Yep.
So I just, for me, it was just a confirmation. Oh,
Yeah.
you real? You here?
Oh, you for real?
Right, you with me?
Right.
So how has God come to you? How has he showed up in your life after prayer?
You said some really pivotal points that I want to touch on as we answer that question. And the first thing was, you said we grew up in the church, and I don't know if you've talked, my story, but I grew up in a very, very strict religion cult-like, honestly.
Okay.
And during the time where I was leaving that religion, my life was in complete disarray. Like, I had no idea what was going on. I was confused. I had all these questions. I was not getting answers. I was being demonized by the church. And I really became very resentful of God. And I was this close to being atheist and saying, F everything.
Oh.
Like, I'm not, like, I am done with this completely. And literally, I feel like God picked me up and took me on a tour of the world. And the tour, it was Semester at Sea.
Okay.
And through this tour, I saw God in a way that I had never seen God before. I saw the mountains, I saw the ocean, I saw God's people
Yes.
in all different types of forms, practicing all different types of religion, speaking all different types of languages. I went to 14 countries on this voyage, so I literally circumnavigated the entire globe, and it was humbling and it was calming. And I think you talked about it. And I think it's so important that we know that we see these theatrics and we think God is this,
Right.
fire and brimstone.
Right.
And so many times, like he does not appear that way. At least not for me in the times that I've been able to experience God. But I think the most important thing for me was that I had to understand God for myself.
Right.
I didn't know God for me. I knew my parents' God.
Right.
And me learning who God was and how I interpret and understand in my own relationship was probably one of the most beautiful things that has ever happened to me in my life. And it was so necessary for me to learn who God was. And I started over. Like, I literally went back to the bottom, start over. You talked about
Right.
it. And had to unlearn everything that I knew
Yes.
or that I thought I knew about what God is, who God is, and the existence of that power, and just learning that. And I remember being in my dorm room at one point and feeling this overwhelming feeling of love. And I had never experienced God as love. My
Right.
church always talked about it, but we only knew God as fear, so that they could control us.
Right.
It was 100%
So if you don't
fear.
do what God says, this is going to happen.
You're gonna die. You'll die in a fiery car crash. Like,
Oh,
that
no.
was literally, I thought I was gonna go blind by watching television. I remember, because we were taught we would go blind if we watched TV. And I really believed that. So we knew God as fear. I never experienced God to be love. And going through that, where I was able to start understanding and learning God for myself, like, it was just this overwhelming feeling of love. Like, I remember feeling like God was rocking me.
Okay.
Like, rocking me in his arms, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I was bawling, and I had never felt that before.
Isn't it such a good, it's a good feeling.
It's safe. It feels safe.
Yes, it is. And it's a different kind of feeling when you experience. It's nothing that you can really describe to,
Yeah.
like, I understand her because I had my God moment. So I know that overwhelming feeling of what is happening, like, this amazing feeling right now. Like, I know exactly what she is talking about, but for those who don't know, it is very difficult to describe, other than we can tell you what led up to that, and we can tell you what happened, but the feeling behind it, I can't describe it.
Well, it is pertinent that everyone have their own, you call it a God moment. It's very pertinent that every individual have their own God moment.
Right.
And what you experience is your experience. And the beautiful thing about God is God is not confusing, like, ever.
No.
And when God speaks, you know it's God speaking. So if you're like, I don't know, it's probably not God's voice. It's probably not you experiencing God
Right.
in that way. Because God is certain, God is sure. You know, like, all these things, when God appears, there is no room for questioning or your
Right.
you know that you know that you know
Right.
you've experienced this.
Right, because when he talked to me, it wasn't like, well, maybe you should leave, girl. Maybe you should. He said, start over.
Boom, let's go.
It was start over.
Yes.
Start over.
Very clear, very direct.
Yes.
All this confusion. And I remember when I moved to Phoenix, I was sitting on my couch writing, and I was thinking, I was in a relationship with this guy, and I just adored everything about him. And I was typing, and I pray a lot. Like, I talk to God in the middle of the day when I'm doing whatever, and I was like talking to God as I was typing, and I was like, God, I feel confused. And God was like, if you're confused, like, that's not me. I'm not in confusion.
Right.
And, like, my world literally came to a screeching halt, because God don't put you in confusing situations.
No.
You put yourself in confusing situations. The devil puts you in confusing situations. But God is always clear, always. And so for me, it was hard. That was a hard pill to swallow because I did not want to let that man go.
Right.
I was obsessed. Like, he was just perfect in my eyes, I thought at the time. And I literally thought I would never, ever be able to get over him or never let that go. And just, oh my God, what is happening? And now I'm just like, I don't even.
Girl, who? Right. Who was he?
But I'm grateful for that experience, and I'm grateful that I was able to go through that and to get over it and to forgive and to not have any malice or hatred toward him or anyone else for that matter.
So let me ask you this. As far as prayer goes, I know before I had my God moment, prayer was all day, every day. So you guys, if you have not listened to season 1, so I worked at a Catholic hospital, St. Joseph's down in Tucson. And so we had a chapel and we had a prayer room, which was very convenient at the time. And so I would just disappear in our prayer room for like hours on end on these people's clock.
Well,
and just be in there bawling and praying for God to just come. Before you had your journey, was that something that you sought for him? Like, did you ask God to take you, to show you, to hold you, to guide you? Is that something that you were actively seeking from God, or do you think God just said, let me just?
I think that there was a point where that started, where I started being very intentional, but I think initially I wasn't. And you talked about how you were in the bathtub one day, and for me, I had a bathtub moment too. Like, things go down in the bathtub.
They do. Take your bath, y'all. Get in that bath with them bubbles, child.
And then your life gonna change.
Right.
And I was sitting on my bathtub floor, water coming down. I was like bawling, and I was just in this state of confusion. And I just said, God, I need help. And that was the first time that I was very intentional in speaking to God. And it wasn't some elaborate prayer. It was very minimal words. I just said, God, I need help. And in that moment, I think I allowed myself to be open to God and to kind of save me. And from then, I started being more intentional about praying and about the steps that I would take in and talking to God about me being confused and everything.
Right.
And so from there, that's when the trajectory kind of changed, and that's when I started to go on that 731-day journey, which is what I talk about in the part of what I talk about in the podcast. But it was hard and it was intense.
Right.
So yeah, that was my moment for me.
Right. And so I would say one thing about if you right now are asking God to take you on a journey, understand that you better be ready for what you are about to go through, because once he changes you, or once the process of change and transition starts to happen, there is no going back. You lose people, you lose friends, you may lose family members, that husband that you think is so great. Like, understand that you're gonna take a loss first. Things get worse before they get better.
Real talk.
Okay? So you will lose out first, but then you will emerge. You will start to emerge as they say, as a butterfly. And once that happens, you'll look back and you won't miss a soul. You will not miss one person that you lost. And I know I look back at some of my journey, and some of it is even a blur. Like, some of it, like, I'm surprised that you know the amount of days. So what she informed me actually before we started recording is her podcast 731 is actually the number of days that she was on her journey. And I don't even remember.
Well,
like,
the only reason I remember is because I went back in my journal and I
Oh,
counted the days.
okay.
Like when you're in the process, you don't have time to pay attention to all that
No,
stuff. Like
no.
you're not. And if you are doing that, you're probably not paying on attention to the healing that needs to happen in your soul, because it's not about what's going to happen at the end or me creating a platform. I had no intentions of
Right.
creating this platform at all.
Right.
So when I was talking to a mentor, and we just kind of started talking about my journey, and my friend, we were actually in Spain at the time, and she asked me, Sasha, how did you heal? And I was like, I don't know. So then I went back and I started to read things.
Okay.
I was talking to a mentor, and I went back and I counted the days,
Okay.
and it was 731 days. And I was
Okay.
like, oh my gosh, like this is
This is
what
it.
this is it. I'm gonna talk about this because so many people need this.
Right.
And we're all going to go through something that's going to knock you down in life. And I think it's important for the viewers to recognize that you are going to have a all-out knockdown moment at some point in your life. It's
Right.
inevitable. It's a part of the human experience.
Right.
But know that you can overcome that, and you can absolutely blossom, and you can absolutely get over that hurdle, and it will be a story that you are then able to sit somewhere with someone else and tell someone else who's about
Right.
to go through that journey, who hasn't gone through that yet, but we all have that experience.
Right. And I will say too, to kind of piggyback off of Sasha here, when I was going through my journey, I had no idea that I was gonna create a YouTube discussing my experience. I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed. And I thought I was the only one that was having a difficult time. I thought, you know, I see my dad, and my dad is like, just move on. I see my grandmother and my mother, and everybody's like, just move on, just move on. Like it's just the easiest thing to do. And I realized this shit ain't easy. Ain't nothing easy about this. And I need to let other people know, like, listen, if you're having if you have broken up with someone, or you are divorcing someone, and you are happy about it, and you are just, you recognize immediately that it is the best thing that has ever happened to you. Kudos to you.
And they've probably already had their moments of being sad about it.
Right.
Before they got to that point.
Right. But I will say, for those who are having a difficult time and don't know that others are out here going through the same difficult journey, like, you're not alone. Like, it does take time, and it does take you do need help. You do need to hear other people's stories. And, you know, I personally did not know that about a year later, a very good friend of mine would be divorced. And here I am. I used to sit in her chair while she did my hair, and I'm bawling to her, crying because I'm divorcing, and, you know, it was crazy. And next thing you know, like a year and a half later, she's going through the same thing. And just so happened, her and I were married by the same justice of the peace downtown. That's funny. But here I am. Now I'm trying to help her through her journey. And I had no idea that I would be helping people. I didn't even think it was worth helping people. I didn't know. But
there's so much shame around going through things like that. And I know, like, when I talk about 731 now, talking to my friends, sometimes they recognize the time frame, and they're like, I knew you during that time, and I had no idea.
yes.
And I'm like, yeah, no, like literally no one knew that I was going through this.
Silently hurting.
Yes, I was in so much pain, and no one knew that. I would go to Sunday Fun Day with all my friends, turn up, and go home and cry myself to sleep.
Oh my
and
God.
No one else knew that. And, you know, I think what you're doing is commendable. I think these platforms are so necessary because people are suffering in silence, and you don't have to.
Right.
Because we're all going through some type of pain.
Right.
There are resources for you. There are groups that you can join. There's podcasts that you can tune into to get information that may just help you go one more day.
Right. And same as you. We were probably at the same turn up, then leaving, going home crying because we're both silently hurting. I don't know if she's going through that because she just got this big old wonderful smile, and here I am, got this big old wonderful smile. So she probably had no idea. And you know, a lot of people in our circle did not even know that I was my story had extended as deep as it did. Like, nobody knew I suffered from severe depression. Nobody knew that I would want to absolutely kill myself. Like, I literally, the pain, and I have to say this again. It was not about that man. It was not about me wanting that man. It was the pain. I just wanted the pain to stop.
Yes, and it's always, and you know, I remember we both have a mutual friend, and she and I were talking about it. It's never about that other person for the most part. It goes so, it extends so far beyond that. Like when I started going through my healing journey, I went to Vipassana, and it was a 10-day meditation camp out in California, and I did it for my 30th birthday. It was a gift to myself, and it was hard. It was a painful experience to really dig deep inside of myself and recognize things. But I mean, I had gone back to my childhood. I remember having visions during this time of me being 5 years old and understanding the pain that I experienced then, that I had translated into my being 25 years later as a 30-year-old woman that I had to address.
Right.
And so, you know, we meet these people in life and we're like, you did this to me, you hurt me, you did this, but it's probably deeper than that.
Right.
And for me, I had to dig way, way, way deep. I had to be accountable. I had to learn how to forgive myself, how to forgive others, all of these things that went into making me a whole being.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, we are going to stop right there. This has been part 1 of the Power of Prayer. Next week, Sasha and I are going to come back, and we are actually going to talk about manifesting your future through prayer. I know I have experienced that as well. I know Sasha has.
Hallelujah.
So we are going to come back and talk to you about that. Visit 731. You're on Apple Music and you are on Google Play.
Yes.
Okay, so search 731 on Apple Music and Google Play. You can also follow Sasha Simmons on Instagram.
The Sasha Simmons.
The Sasha at the Sasha Simmons.
At the Sasha, THE 1 E. Sasha SASHA Simmons SIMMONS.
Yes, our young Sash here.
Hey.
All right, and if you have not subscribed to Just Swallow the Pill, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to like, comment, and share Just Swallow the Pill as well. And if you yourself have a comment for me, or if you want to share your story, or if there's a topic that you would like to hear on next season of Just Swallow the Pill, go ahead and email me at thedifficultpill@gmail.com. And as I always say, your crown is not on your head, it is in your soul. Thank you so much for joining, and we will see you guys next week.